Chapter 35. A crimson glow in the library, and the word ladder is glow, blow, blot, boot, book, look. The enormous hall was packed with guests, all of whom wore their dress at best. A string quartet was playing lively music, and helium balloons floated above everything. Streamers stretched across the ceiling and were draped over the enormous windows. Everyone was laughing and talking and enjoying themselves, and the waiters were scurrying all about. Elizabeth was frantic to find Norbridge. "Finally," someone said behind her. Elizabeth turned to see Freddie dressed up for the evening in corduroy pants and a white dress shirt. "I've been looking everywhere for you." "You won't believe everything that's happened today," Elizabeth said, leaning close to him and speaking urgently. She looked around quickly as though even in that moment she'd focused on Freddie. She might have missed spotting Norbridge. "Have you seen Norbridge? Is he here?" "What's going on?" Freddie said. He was looking at her as if she were speaking Latin. "Freddie, I don't have time to explain everything, but a whole bunch of things have happened since I saw you this afternoon. I solved Nestor's code, for one, and I'm positive that the Himeses are helping Gracella. Also, I think I might be connected to Winterhouse somehow." She took her pendant from inside her shirt. There's Carter. From inside her shirt, he's got a bag of donuts, which he shouldn't have, but... Yeah. All right, buddy, I'm reading. You can listen, but you've got to be quiet. Listen. Sorry, guys. Oh, lost my train. Oh my goodness, where were we? She was talking about the part where she says, "I think I must be connected to Winterhouse."
No.
And I seriously have completely lost it. Oh my. Okay, I found it. Woo! She took her pendant from inside her shirt and showed it to him. "This used to belong to Norbridge's daughter, and the word on it is the key word for Nestor's message." "What?" Freddie said. Slow down, I don't get it. How did you find out all of this?" "There's no time to explain." The string quartet started up a new tune that was suddenly very loud, and Elizabeth pulled Freddie to the side of the hall. "Have you seen Norbridge in here?" "Not yet. I thought he'd be showing up for the party soon." Elizabeth clutched her pendant tightly, scanned the room one more time, and saw only a mass of people dancing and laughing. She couldn't help feeling that if those people knew what Gracella and the Himeses might be planning, if they only understood that there was something evil in Winterhouse that might, that very evening, try to harm them. She stopped thinking about it and turned back to Freddie. "We have to find him," she said, "right now." She grabbed Freddie's hand and they rushed toward the door closest to them. "Where are we going?" Freddie said. Elizabeth considered for the briefest of moments before saying, with complete certainty, "The library." The corridor to the library was darker than usual, Elizabeth thought, and the approach to the huge wooden doors was like traveling through a dark tunnel. When she and Freddie, as quietly as possible, opened one of the doors, Elizabeth felt as though they were stepping into a broad valley at midnight, and then two of them were alone in the gloom and the silence of the library. They stood listening and waiting. "I don't think anyone's here," Freddie said after a moment, his voice shaking. "Maybe we should look somewhere else." Elizabeth put a finger to her lips. She looked up. On the third level, high above them, a faint glow of crimson hovered in the air. She pointed to it. Freddie stood rooted to the floor. "We need to get up there," she whispered. Freddie winced. "Why don't we go find Norbridge and bring him back here to look into it?" Elizabeth took a deep breath. "What if he's up there and needs our help?" Freddie pushed up his glasses and nodded. Elizabeth took Freddie's hand and hers. "We can't be afraid. We can do this together." Without a sound, they began to climb the long stairwell. Elizabeth moved deliberately, listening for any noise from above, but all remained silent. She put a hand on her pendant, ran her fingers across it. "Faith," she said to herself. They reached the top of the stairwell and in silent agreement moved toward the reference room, the very place Elizabeth had found the book. With each step, the crimson light grew stronger. An awful smell. It was just like a lit matchstick combined with a deeper odor of something rotten beneath, filled the air, and Elizabeth scrunched her nose in disgust. She paused, took a halting breath, and pressed on. When they came to the doorway, Elizabeth was instantly baffled by the scene that met her eyes. On a chair in the middle of the room, bathed in a glow of crimson light, sat a tall, thin woman in a long overcoat with her white hair set in a crown-like bun. She was looking to a corner of the room so that Elizabeth saw her profile only. The woman, it seemed, had not noticed her and Freddie come into view. Elizabeth gave a gasp of surprise. The woman... Sorry. Carter, what are you doing? Sorry, guys. Aiden fell asleep, but Carter is rip-roaring and ready to go. Savannah, will you please check on him up there? He took an Easter bucket up to the bathroom, and there's nothing good. There's nothing good that's gonna come from that. I just know it. I just know it. Sorry, guys. Elizabeth gave a gasp of surprise, and please shut the bathroom door. What? Okay, we'll shut the door behind him so he doesn't get into shenanigans. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Careful. Whew. Goodness gracious. Oh, the Tunison household. It's a crazy place. It's a crazy place. There's a lot of fun happening, but there's a lot of crazy happening as well. Oh. He just rolled down three steps, but he's not crying and he's saying we. So I'm so sorry, guys. Back on track here. We're at a really good part. No time for distractions. So many years since I've been in this library, the woman said. She continued to look away. The crimson light around her throbbed as she spoke, a strange and ominous pulse. So many years, the woman said. It was as if she were speaking to someone else in the room, though Elizabeth was too frightened and perplexed to make sense of what was happening. Such a wonderful place, the woman continued, her gaze fixed far away, her voice low and steady and icy calm. So many memories, hours, days, endless days spent here with all these lovely books, looking, examining, and searching. She turned to glare at Elizabeth and spat out her final word with a cruel hissing sound. Searching! Her eyes flashed wide and evil as the crimson glow around her flared. Elizabeth's skin felt on fire. Before her was the woman from her nightmares, the woman who had haunted her sleep and trapped her in an endless library. You, Elizabeth sputtered, hardly aware that she was speaking. You are... Yes, I have returned to Winterhouse, the woman said, her voice louder now. That must be what you're trying to say? She smiled cruelly. The woman stood, lifted her hand slowly above her head in some threatening gesture as though about to toss an invisible ball at Elizabeth and Freddie. Under a jacket, she wore a satiny black dress and a vest with strange patterns on it, just like the designs on Selena's vest, and long black gloves. There was a wild look in her eyes, and the crimson light billowed around her. Yikes! She lowered her... I don't know if you're seeing right here in the corner. Not good. She lowered her... Oh, he just dumped that bag of donuts on the floor. She lowered her arms and stared at Elizabeth and Freddie, her face set in an expression of restrained fury. She seemed to be considering just how exactly she wanted to harm them, as though there was no question that she had them trapped now. And it was this more than anything that the woman seemed in complete control that sent another wave of terror through Elizabeth. She reached for Freddie, and they clasped hands. The woman laughed. My dear, dear brother was just as stunned to see me as you are, she said, as she looked to the corner of the room again. There at the foot of the bookcase lay Norbridge. He was motionless and slack. Before Elizabeth could gather her thoughts, the woman floated forward as though a stiff wind had pushed her from behind and landed lightly on the floor, having the distance between her and Elizabeth in one instant motion. The strangeness of it, that the old woman had actually skimmed forward in a flash, sent a shock through Elizabeth's body as though she'd been hit with slivers of broken glass. It was so uncanny and unexpected that Elizabeth felt paralyzed. I didn't even have to come get you, the woman said. You've come to me. She gave a weird leer of pleasure, jutted her face in Elizabeth's direction, and bugged her eyes out. "What are you doing?" Elizabeth said. "What's the matter with Norbridge?" The woman looked at Norbridge. "Fast asleep," she said. Her voice began to boom as she lifted both of her hands, palms outward, and began to laugh. Elizabeth stood fixed in place, watching. "What am I doing, you ask?" the woman said as she turned back to Elizabeth. "I'm putting an end to him once and for all. That's what I'm doing. And then I'm going to come for you. But you've saved me the trouble." She moved 2 steps closer. "So many nice books in the room, huh?" she said gently, before beginning to yell once more. "And they all remind me of the years I spent here as a girl, all the times he humiliated me, lorded over me, and made me feel like nothing." And at this, she bounded to the nearest bookcase, once again skimming forward by some unseen force, snatched a book from a shelf, whipped around toward Norbridge, and hurled the book in his direction, just missing him. "No!" Elizabeth yelled as she dashed to Norbridge. She fell to the ground beside him and cradled his head. "Please, please," Freddie said, his voice shaking. He was staring at Elizabeth as if he hoped he might somehow save all of them. "Silence," the woman said, plucking out another book and hurling it toward Freddie. The crimson light around her was quivering, pulsing wildly. "Freddie!" Elizabeth screamed, and as she stood, the woman glared at her with a face full of hatred. "Be quiet," the woman yelled. "Freddie!" screamed Elizabeth again. "Go, get Jackson, hurry!" Freddie lurched through the doorway and was gone. "It won't matter," the woman called, "by the time anyone returns." Then she bugged her eyes out again. "Why are you doing this?" Elizabeth said. "Because I can," she said. "Because I want to. Because I hate all of you. And most of all, I hate this place. I am Gracella Winters, and I'm sure you figured out from all your snooping, and I've come back." She laughed and she pointed to Elizabeth. "You brought me back. You woke my spirit in the library, and you brought it fully awake at my cabin." She spread her arms and glanced quickly downward to admire herself. "I only needed it to reunite with my bodily form. Now I'm whole once again. You made this possible." Gracella was staring at Elizabeth, who began to feel oddly fatigued. Her arms and legs became heavy, and a deep weariness fell over her. "It was you, my dear Gracella." "You clever girl," Gracella said. "You clever girl." She kept staring deeply into Elizabeth's eyes, repeating the words, "You clever girl." And Elizabeth felt her limbs growing thicker. Gracella stepped closer. Something in the back of Elizabeth's mind was whispering to her, was telling her not to keep looking into Gracella's eyes, but she stood fixed in place as the old woman continued saying the words in a lulling, quiet chant. "It was you clever girl," she said softly.